Yes, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where and when you're watching us from. My name is Mutathi wa Wachira wa Nyaga Mujiri wa mbari ya Karigithi na ngwihoka kuma ng'ongo ciothe iria ciumaga huho. Muri thayo. Today is a good day. It's a beautiful day here in Kenya, here in Africa, here in Nairobi. To be specific, it is the 28th day of June. The year is 2023. It's also what we call, how do you call it? It's a holiday. It's Eid al-Adha for our Muslim brothers. So we want to say also Ahlan wa Sahlan, and we also want to wish them Eid al-Adha Mubarak. Welcome, guys. Today we are having a really interesting conversation that was prompted from our previous show on African Corner. We are having a discussion on matters pertaining the finance bill, and which is no longer a finance bill right now. It's now a law, but it's a finance bill 2023 turned into law. Just the other day on Monday, the president assented to it, and now it will be effective immediately. Some of it will start as early as this coming month. I think in 3 days thereabout. Now, as you guys can see, we have a really interesting panel today, ready to charge into this discussion and have a good conversation. So we have one lady and two gentlemen, but hopefully others will join us. So guys, you can comment. You can also don't forget to subscribe and all that. So I want to start with the lady because ladies first, and she's the only lady in the house also today. To introduce herself, tell us what she engages herself in, and then we'll get into the conversation a bit later. Grace.
Okay, thank you, Washira, for that. My name is Grace Morisi. I am a law student at Yale University. I'm in my third year. I love being in conversations that ask questions that really stir up or even get us talking. So I'm really excited to be here. And thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Grace, for being here also, and welcome to the topic. Also have Odor, please introduce yourself.
Yes, hi, our viewers. Odor Omondi Ogara. Odor is Omondi. Omondi is Ogara, a long-term student of politics and sociology. Thank you.
Thank you, Odor. And last but not least, Stephen Omukoko. How are you? Please introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Ashira. My name is Stephen Mkoko Koth, and I'm a student of economics. I come from Western Kenya, and I'm excited for this conversation because I think it affects us in one way or the other, but also as active citizens who want to be part of Kenya and who want to be involved in the environment, political environment, and anything that's happening in this country. I think it's necessary that we have conversations of this nature. Thank you, and I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you very much, guys. I'm really grateful for you guys to sharing your time and being here. And since we are in the spirit of Eid al-Adha, there is something that a good friend of mine sent me. His name is Omar, and just let me read it so that maybe guys can know what we mean when we say Eid al-Adha, because also part of our job is also to inform people on things. And he sent me a very interesting paragraph here. It says that Eid al-Adha, a joyous occasion, serves a timeless reminder of our shared heritage of faith, beautifully exemplified by the revered figure of Prophet Abraham. His unwavering devotion and extraordinary act of sacrifice transcend the boundaries of religion. May this Eid inspire us to foster a world where love triumphs over division, awakening within us the untapped potential to become beacons of light, spreading compassion and love while leaving an indelible imprint on the human story. I just thought I read this because it's a beautiful thing. Omar sent this also courtesy of Salam. Yes. So I think we have done with the introductions. We have also heard what we are here to do. So let us have a really wonderful occasion today, and let us hear your comments, guys. Send in your comments so that we can have a good conversation. I can see people have already started sending in their comments. Kevin Derito saying that hoping to get informed from this great panel. We have Luther. Luther is also sending in some fire emojis. So keep the conversation going. Now, let me start with you, Grace. We are saying we have a bill, or rather, we were saying we have a financial bill, a finance bill. What does it mean for us to have a finance bill, or what does it mean now that this finance bill has become law? Many people are just hearing of finance bill, but what does it really mean? Where does this thing come from in the first place, so that it now can be in the minds and the airwaves of Kenya? Grace.
Thank you for that, Washira. So that's a very good question, actually, because not many people have known about the finance bill. But interestingly, in all years, this is the only or the most year that people, even the person in the village, knows about the finance bill. Why? Because it has been amended and it has a lot of regulations. And to answer your question, the finance bill right now, it's a law. It's no longer a bill, as you had started by saying that. So that is to mean that it can only be declared maybe unconstitutional. That's the only way that we cannot use the law right now. So the finance bill is usually done yearly. That is for example, the fiscal year of the government starts from June 1st, and that's why we are seeing like right now it's a new government year, and that's why we have now new budgets, new budgetary allocations to various things, and it is very important because as Kenyans, so long as you're working, so long as you need to get your basic needs, and it doesn't have to be a white collar jobs. I think most the workforce right now in Kenya, most of them is blue collar jobs, jobs that are not like low traditional jobs, 8 to 5 jobs. So then it really affects everyone, and I think everyone has a right to have their basic needs, a right to have fair taxes, and it's very important that even as our leaders are thinking about amending, and okay, right now it's a law, but it's something that should be put into consideration. And lastly, I would like to mention something about public participation. That's one of the things that, or one of the steps before even going to the parliament or even tabling the bill. Public participation is very key, and that means civic awareness, public awareness, going into the interiors and letting people know what does this mean, what does the finance bill mean, breaking it down to a layman's language. And I think that's something important and has not been implemented as of now. I think it's more civilized or more of the government. And even though people know about it, even in the village, they really do not know the clauses that are within the bill, and it's already signed right now. So they have no say. So public participation has not been practiced. Yeah.
Thank you, Grace. It is true. That thing, and especially that bill, for layman, or for just, let me say, the common mwananchi, it might be really difficult to, comprehend, because it's a little bit full of information. And that also leads me to my next question. Coco, I know you're not a common mwananchi, but what does this bill means, or this law now means to you? And also not only in the political aspect, but even in the apolitical aspect. What does it mean that now we have a bill that became law, and it is going to start working this next month?
Yeah, maybe just before we move on, I just wanted to mention something that Grace touched on. I don't know whether the problem was lack of public participation or whether public participation was not necessarily listened to. There have been complaints. There are people who send emails. There are people who we had the big conversation on Citizen TV. So there has been a fair degree of public participation. My only concern is that the public has not been listened to. We have had a majority of people against this bill, but it passed anyway. But that said, for me, this bill shows that there have been so many changes that have been made as far as finance and funds in the country is concerned. And of course, I can go through a few of them if that's what you want me to do. But other than that, it's just that we have a government in a situation that is very tight. There's no easy way out. And so there's a government that has made a lot of promises. We have geopolitical issues that are affecting the country. We have a president who will want to seek a second term, and so he wants to use every resource that is available to him to ensure that all these targets are met. But you also have a debt situation that is really dire, and international financial institutions that are putting pressure on the government. But the other thing we'll notice about the bill is Kenya's commitment to helping to address climate change, which is also key in this bill. So I think those are sort of the things that create the environment within which this bill arises. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. It's true. It has a lot of things that we need to look at it. You don't just have to say either. It's not a blank nay or yay. We have to look at it in depth and just try to comprehend it. But my friend, the political scientist Odor, we have just passed the finance bill. Allow me to be a little bit political now. And right now I'm hearing or I'm reading in various sources that the president is proposing an NHIF bill also, something of that sort. 2.75% from the gross income of taxpayers. How do you read that situation, Odor?
Yes, thank you once again. Yeah, what I can say, as Kenyans, we need to brace ourselves for tougher times. If someone earning 50,000 gross pay currently will be going home with 40,000 minus the NHIF proposal by the president, then we need to brace ourselves for more tougher times. The bill, as it was appropriations that the Kenya Kwanza government put in place to derive and make sure that their manifesto and promises through the assignment of the actual resources are met. But the problem that we have is Kenyans are yet to see. Like my panelists have spoken of, the public participation itself was not reached to the way it was supposed to be. Let us just continue bracing ourselves. If the 2.75% will go into place and will be put into action, then we need to brace ourselves for more tougher times in this financial year that is beginning on 1st of July. Since the budget already was read and you saw where most money was going to, and we need just to brace ourselves for tougher times and brace ourselves that throughout all these things that are taking place, the bill has already been enacted into law and has been assented to by the president. Therefore, we need to just brace ourselves for things are going to get tougher and tough. Yes, thank you.
And when you say things are going to get tough and tough, just tell us, hapo kwa ground. Unajua tunasemanga kwa ground mambo ni different. What do we really mean when we say things are going to get tough? Or tougher, because things are already tough right now. For my case here, right, kitambo kidogo, we used to go with 1,000 shilling to the supermarket and you come with a very, a good size of a bag, of shopping. But right now, I'm telling you, you're not even getting to the supermarket. The minute you're outside the gate, oh God, it is almost done. Now, Abue Odor, you are saying things are going to get tougher. Paint for us a picture, a realistic picture, so that you can be able to understand how worse can it get. Are we already living in hell?
No, we are still in heaven on earth yet, but hell is soonest approaching. Yeah, what is there? As the bill is as at now, I want to give you statistic information, and I think Steve is going to give a broader aspect on the economic side. But let me give a statistical information to as it is as at now. Number one, the 1.5% of gross pay going to the house levy is on me as an employee, and my employee is also going to have 1.5%. Number one thing that the employer probably won't have to contribute that is because the employer has to match that on the allowable expenses that is going to be attributed in on my pay. So it means it still lies on the beholder, and the beholder is me as an employee. The second thing, if you check currently, if you're earning 500,000 to 799,000 shillings, you are going to have a gross taxable income at 32.5%. That is what you pay as you earn. That is 32.5. And 800,000 to 1 million is going to be 35%. Therefore, someone earning 800,000 roughly is going to slash away 260,000. 260,000 slash from 800,000. You haven't placed the NHIF, that the proposal that the president is giving, that is 2.7%. That has not been put into place. The housing allowance hasn't been put into place. You also are paying for probably your relatives and so on and so forth. When you check someone with a gross pay of roughly 50,000, that is the least. Let us just say that is the least. Currently, the net of that individual is at 41,000. But when all these have been put in place, let us include the proposed 2.75% that is being put in place by the president, is being proposed by the president. This guy is going to go home with roughly 38,000. As at now, in the month of July, the person earning 50,000 as a gross is going to take home a net pay of 40,091 shillings. While if the NHIF proposals are going to be put and incorporated into place, the person will be going home with 38,000 and so on and so forth. You see, someone earning 200,000. Now we are putting the statistical concept and context. Someone earning 200,000 is going to go home with 142,000. Now, what about the hustler? What about the mtu wa boda boda? What about the mama mboga that is earning daily per day? Is whatever I'm doing is whatever I'm going to get. Yet again, there are some proposals that have been put in place that if you are unemployed, and if you're a mama mboga, you're a hustler, you're a mtu wa boda boda, you'll have to be slash away 1,000 shillings for NHIF. That is according to the president's proposals. Looking at the finance bill, now finance law, there were around 157 articles. Out of those 157 articles, the ones which were contextual a lot was the housing levy. The NHIF was not into it too much, the VAT and the pay as you earn and the current proposals in terms of content creators and so on and so forth. But as we go and progress into this finance bill and finance law, the tougher, now speaking of that the L is going to be down to us on earth, we need to brace ourselves for the toughest times possible, because they are saying they are going to review the laws in the next 12 months. In the next 12 months, where will you be after all these things have been slashed, after everything has been incorporated and put into place? So let us just brace ourselves for tougher times, and July will be a prerequisite to knowing the preceding months that are yet to come. Thank you.
Thank you. You have said hell is upon us. And Omkoko, the Bible says that God or Jesus Christ went to build houses for us. And the issue of housing levy was burning. It was the most burning thing in that finance bill. And I don't know your reactions to it, Steve, because 1.5% for the employee and the employer to match out and a similar 1.5%. Why was the housing thing such a great issue? And do you think it's a good idea? What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, yeah, thank you very much, Yoshira. Just to paint a little bit more on the picture of how tougher things are going to get. When people don't have money, we have increase in crime. And if many of you are observant, actually crime rates are very high right now. If you come to Western Kenya, if you grow something, you might look on the sides and you seem to maybe still have your maize. If you go in the middle of the field, people have stolen from the middle. So you won't even notice unless you visit your land. And right now it's very dangerous to stay outside maybe past 7 p.m. because it's getting much tougher. But on the question of the housing levy, I think it was very contentious for several reasons. One of them is, there's a trust deficit in Kenya. we do not trust our government. So we are not sure if we give out this money, is it going to do the work that the government promises it will do? That is the first thing. But the other thing is no one in the world that I know of wants to be deducted any money. No one wants to lose 10 shillings. No one wants to lose 1% or whatever percentage that they're setting up. I think now it's 1.5%. So it's also contentious because people understand quite clearly that they're going to lose money and no one wants that to happen. And then the other thing is people just don't know how they will benefit from this. A lot of people have a roof on top of their heads. So when you tell them that you have to contribute to housing and you have a house, it doesn't make sense to you who has a house. Well, it's also very unclear what the government intends to get out of this. They say that the biggest reason why they are pushing for this agenda is to create employment. But if it's just to create employment, then you can tell people to dig holes on the road and then fill them up and pay them money. That will still be employment. It's certainly what the government is paying for. In terms of the help that it might have, I thought maybe they wanted to eradicate maybe something, slums in Nairobi, like Kibra slums. But that is not what they want to do. They want to construct houses everywhere in the country. So it's quite confusing how this will be implemented. There is no guarantee that Kenyans will get anything out of it. And also the fact that people are now losing money makes people a little bit cautious on contributing towards this. And of course, the trust deficit that is there between the government and the people of Kenya. Yeah, that's what I think. And that's why I think it has been very contentious.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve, on that. And Grace, people, it's true. Many people don't want to. Nobody wants to be deducted money. I'm sure even if the government will have come, or somebody from the offices come and say, Grace, I want to. Do you allow me to deduct you wouldn't agree. But now there's the issue of the VAT increase, especially an 8% increase now, making it a 16%. To things that are on petrol, kerosene, aviation fuel, and all that. And it is for sure that these things are going, at the end of the day, to have an effect on the general cost of living. Now, we are seeing now kwa ground mambo ni different, and especially on the issue of VAT. You also, as a lawyer, please talk to us. Why was it important for the government, so that we can also understand why is it cunning, or it was intentional for them to just increase VAT, especially on such products? Talk to us through that, Grace.
Thank you, Ashira. So 8% to 16%, to start with, that looks so absurd, because what the government is trying to do is to maximize the revenue by using the taxpayers. Now, case in point, in America, or the United States of America, right now, if they usually have a lot of taxes, but they know where it is going. It is implemented. The implementation part of it is done. And my colleague here, a panelist, you had mentioned by saying that, yes, we know about this. We know these statistics, the 8% to 16% of fuel. We know all these statistics. The finance bill is everywhere, but there is no clear guideline or implementation of the aftermath of how it is going to be divided. And I think that is a bit sad, because we do not know how. The president was talking about, if you want to do something, if something is supposed to work, then you have to adopt new mechanisms, new methods. Well, that's fine, but we cannot adapt new methods by implementing new laws, and still we're using the same mechanisms to handle the money. Now, let me just break it down. In total, using a little statistics. So the total collection is 311 billion now after everything. Then with the house levy, it's going to be 73 billion. And then you remember it was 3%. So right now it's 1.5%. So you can imagine it was plus 11 billion. So right now it's 73 billion. They'll be collecting every other time. Now, for the VAT on the fuel, that is 51 billion. Now, if there is no guideline or specific ways where we can be assured that this is how the money is going to be used, and this is how it's going to be divided. This is how it's going to be centralized. I think it is it's only it's so ambiguous, and there's no law that states how it's going. The law is only on the finance bill, but there's no law that is stipulated or any provisions that are going to guide these new mechanisms the president is introducing. Just to add a bit, you had mentioned on the housing levy, and that is true. It caused a lot of chaos. Everyone knew about the housing levy, but there are actually other clauses that people do not know. And those clauses, as we had said earlier, it is hard for them to, they are difficult for a layman, for an ordinary person to understand or even to debunk. Now, for instance, do you know that insurance compensation, that is, it's like 10% on insurance compensation? Now, what does this mean? Now, it means when I am using my car and then I get into an accident, there's increment in tax. I'm supposed to be compensated, right? Compensation means that my car has gotten into an accident and I expect the insurance to return it into its previous form. So there's no buying or selling that is taking place there. It is not a profit business. But what is the government telling us, or this finance bill telling us? It's telling us, actually, we are going to pay taxes for our own compensation for an accident that is happening. So I'm actually adding 10% to pay for my own injury, that the insurance is supposed to return my car or my personal damages to its former state. Now it's asking me to pay taxes, and it's not profit. It's not like I'm earning from it. No, it's actually demolished. Now that is one that people do not know, and then it's overcrowded by now the housing levy. Another one is the farmers. So there's an increase in the fertilizers, and it means that now the VAT, it's almost like now the farmer will be just buying it, will be paying for the taxes by his or her own. And it's going to be very hard, because if the manufacturer is the one who is bearing the cost just to buy the fertilizer, he has not even planted the maize. He has not even okay, he has planted the maize, but he has not even gone through the whole process of even selling. But now there is increment, and the prices of fertilizers are going to go up. Another important thing is there is going to be an excise duty. There's going to be an increment of tax in digital economy. Now, it is so ironical that the government is a big proprietor of, we are going digital, everything is going digital. From our phones, from our apps, if you want to get a driving license, you just go online, search, if you want to go for a passport, go online and search. Guess what? 20% of an excise duty it's placed on this mobile. And that is to say that even though the same government that is telling us that things are going to go digital is the same government that requires me to pay taxes on these free services. And I think these are things that once they put on implementation, it's going to be hard. You just go and try to get your driving license or certificate of good conduct, and you wonder why is the government prioritizing one thing? At the end of the day, the taxpayers are doing this. Another provision is the mobile transfers from M-Pesa to maybe your bank, from a bank to M-Pesa. 12% on mobile transfer. This is something new, and the government is so big on building businesses online, SMEs. It has a lot of projects, a lot of initiatives have been started. Yet the same bill has gone up to 12% on just these mobile transfers. I think at the end of the day, we are not, the common wananchi is going to really suffer, as my colleague had said, that right now we are heaven on earth. But when you go, when that time comes and you're trying to pay for something through your mobile transfer, unashanga what is not happening. That is when now it hits. The rubber meets the road, because now what we didn't understand, what we knew about the finance bill was only the house levy, and the turnover tax. So that is to
Yeah.
say there is still not yet enough public awareness. And if
Mhm.
there is, we're not even being heard, and there's no much implementation afterwards, even after that. Let me just talk about the last provision that people do not know about.
Mhm.
We have when you have a dispute with KRA, for example, hujalipa taxes. Now, did you know that right now the amended bill says that when you want to file a case now, tuseme mimi nataka kufile case. If I want to file a case
Mhm.
because of a dispute arising with KRA, it is going to be KRA versus tuseme Grace Mureithi, right?
Mhm.
Did you know that the disputed amount of money, for example, is 200,000, and I want to
Mhm.
raise that to file the case? Do you know I'll have to pay, me as Grace Mureithi, I'll have to pay 20% of the disputed money for my case to be heard? That is injustice. That is justice delayed, because
Mhm.
even even the I've not my case has not even been heard in the tribunal. My case has not even
Mhm.
been heard in by the judge, has not been filed. And then it continues
And is
ahead
there a
to say
guarantee?
that,
And
yes,
Grace, is there a guarantee that once you are found not guilty, that your percentage will be returned to you?
yes, yes, it will be refunded. But here's the catch. Here's the catch.
Mhm.
Now, there was a case in 2006 by KRA versus Coca-Cola. It took 10 years for it
Mhm.
to be decided, back and forth, back and forth. I will be refunded the money, but the justice system is slow. The justice system is flawed in itself. So how will I be
Mhm.
assured that even if the money is there, even if I'm returned for the money, that the justice that I deserve will be granted? Back to the case
Yeah.
of KRA versus Coca-Cola Company. It took
Mhm.
10 years, and it took 10 years to solve the case, and it included three appeals. I think three appeals, yes. So that alone can tell you that you can't expect to go to court right now and it takes like two
Mhm.
months and that's it. No, it shows that
Yeah.
even if I give them my 20% of the dispute, I mean, after how long will I get the refund? Then it's me against KRA now.
Mhm.
Who is KRA? How sure you the KRA doesn't have lawyers? Me as a
Mhm.
person who is have a small business, maybe I cannot even
Okay.
afford a good lawyer, but KRA,
Mhm.
they can afford a good lawyer, a state lawyer. So
Yeah.
justice at the end of the day does not serve those without money. It will be
Mhm.
delayed and it will not be fair. According to the Constitution, justice should not be delayed, and everyone has a right to fair administrative action. But
Yeah.
implementing it, I think it's not correct. But guess what? The finance bill is signed, and this
Mhm.
that provision has passed. So
Mhm.
what we just know about the house levy, but until you go to the
Yeah.
court and you are told up to 20%, alafu mambo
Mhm.
itaendelea, you'll be like,
Yeah.
where is this Kenya?
Thank you, Grace. Thank you. You know, people are sending in some comments on WhatsApp, especially, and they're telling me, Grace is educating us. Where have you been all this time? So you will tell them where you have been, Grace. But I can see we have been joined
I'm here.
with Timothy. Timothy, please introduce yourself before now we get further into the conversation, Timothy.
Um, Hello to you all. Am I audible enough?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you, thank you. First and foremost, apology. My network seems to be having issues right here. I am
Mhm.
Timothy Mabango. Well,
Mhm.
I do public policy consultancy, and that is the beat that I will chime into this conversation, specifically angling from that point. Well, I do not know where you've started and where you are, but from wherever I've been following, I'll join right therein. Well, for the finance bill, there is a lot of dishonesty going around. I do not refute like the whole of it or say that it is over ambitious or impractical. There are pros and cons with that bill. There are good parts of it, there are bad parts of it. But what specifically annoys people, what specifically disenfranchises the whole point of it, is the specific fact that in our constitution, Article 1 specifically talks about sovereignty of the people, or what my good friends in law would say, vox populi, vox dei, to mean the voice of the people is the voice of God. If you do
Yeah.
not consult people, and in public policy, you'll be told that a good public policy is one that is responsive to the needs of the people. Well, you'll go to social media, majority of the people are complaining about it. Anywhere you go on the streets, over 90% of people, that is to mean out of 10 people, 9 people will say they're not interested in houses, for example. I'm just talking about the housing levy, the 1.5%. So if at all you're not responsive to the needs of the people, currently what is disturbing people is the economy. You see, people cannot afford food, people cannot afford basic needs. Talk of food, you see. So why should you give people houses when they have not asked for it? Well, I do not refute that we have a housing shortage in Kenya. For instance, per year, we construct about 50,000 housing units, which is below the target number. Speaking of World Bank data, that gives us a deficit of about 2 million units. And looking at urban households, over 60% live in slums. Well, talking of the housing levy, it would appear to be a solution to all that. But again, looking at the self-serving aspect of the finance bill, you'll find that the government has tuned people's minds to speak of only the housing fund and few other things. And like my friend spoke about it, you find there are many aspects and clauses of the finance bill that people do not, oh, sorry, the Finance Act, now that it was recently enacted. You find there are many parts of it that people do not yet know about it. For instance, the initial proposal for the finance bill was that the pay as you earn, the payee is 35% for those earning above 500,000 shillings. But you find that when the members of parliament were discussing it, they changed all that. You find that those earning between 500,000 and 800,000, it has been changed from the initial proposal of 35%, it is now 32.5%. Those above 800,000 are the ones now to pay 35%. What does that tell us? That MPs who earn 700,000 and thereabout and above excluded themselves from the highest tax bracket. Look at the helicopters, the input taxes and everything for the helicopters was reduced, but everything else seems to be expanded. So I'm daring to ask, are these taxes being imposed on the citizens aimed at helping them, or is it self-serving? For instance, you find that IMF and World Bank, and I'm happy our president, though I don't know if he really means it, speaks of reconstructing IMF, World Bank, and these global economic lenders because for their formation they were formed especially to boost the European economy post-war. So you find that they do not usually serve the African needs. So now for this finance bill, you find that most of these clauses are aimed at raising our taxes so that we can fit into what the World Bank is recommending. So is it to serve our citizens, or is it to serve the needs of the global economy? Okay,
Yeah.
other than that, again, you look at our ambitious budget proposal for the year 2023, 2024. We are talking of 3.2 or 3.6 trillion, way beyond what we can currently afford. Okay, yes, we might want bigger taxes because bigger taxes means some lot more food on the plate the government can use to feed its people to achieve its economic policies. But again, overtaxation is usually toxic to the economy, some little bit of economy. Looking recently at the Henley Private Wealth Migration Report 2023, you find about 100 high net worth individuals. We are talking of people with excess of 139 million Kenyan shillings, so let's say 1 million US dollars, have migrated from Kenya because the taxes are too much. Well, looking at the finance bill in general, now that I do not want to consume all our time here and probably we have better ideas and better things to talk of. The summary is that we have higher tax rates, we have higher inflationary rates, which places inflationary pressure on our economy. The new CBK governor has given us higher borrowing rates up to about 13%. Then, as we go forward, we have lower disposable incomes, government taking bigger chunks of citizens' incomes. We have no spending cuts, however. You find even recently I had the Secretary General for UDA, which is the ruling party per se, speaking of boosting MCS salaries so that they can better represent people. So, well, I agree. The ideas behind the Finance Act might be for the best, and if at all they can be objectively applied and by people we can trust, people with good leadership records, they may help us achieve. But with self-serving interests, that is beyond achievement. Well, we recently had Kenya being compared to Singapore, rather people saying Kenya could be prospectively the Singapore of Africa, forgetting that Singapore and Kenya are two different economies. Even looking at the size, Singapore is about 800 times less the size of Kenya. In terms of population, Singapore has about less than 6 million people. Kenya, we have over 53 million, if I'm getting my statistics right. In terms of GDP per capita, Singapore is 30 times higher than us, meaning for an ordinary Singaporean, well, this is not the exact figure, but for example, if a Singaporean is earning like 100,000, he has a lot of disposable income as compared to a Kenyan, of which most Kenyans, looking at a teacher's salary, which is the average we can talk of, and my mother is a teacher, I know how that works. We have an average of below 30,000 for the employed people. So, in conclusion, and as I finish my introduction, my very brief introduction, there are good parts in the Finance Act. For instance, having recently completed my campus studies, well, with the increased taxes, with the increased tax base for the government, we might find that even 63,000 university and TVET students, 63,000 more, will get help funding. Well, if at all we will upgrade slums, if at all there is no hoax in all this process, we would appreciate that that would improve the livelihood of people. But now, considering the self-regarding interest behind the Finance Act, I consider it a cacophony of ideological variances with no logical basis, let alone economic grounding. That is my overview of the Finance Act. Thank you for your time and thank you for considering me for this session.
Thank you, Timothy. People who are watching us from this other end are telling me you are reminding them of Barack Muluka. Two people have said that, so that's why I'm saying them. You speak like Barack Muluka to them, and I think that's a good thing. Allow me to just briefly, read some comments that are coming in. I can see Stephen Majaki saying a wonderful in-depth analysis by Timothy. Thank you, Steve. And then we have Live, Laugh, and Love. But digital aunts shouldn't be taxed because the service providers already have paid again. No government resource is used. Yeah, thank you for that comment. I can see Saifan Munda saying kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. We hope our money will be well accounted. As Kenyans, let's make the government accountable. Let's speak. Good work, panel. Can see people like Joseph Wambua sending in some fire emojis there. And then we have Andrew Weldon saying that what keeps me going is that there are those that depend on me. If it could be me alone, nice conversation. Following from Kisumu Dala. Then we have Lennox Amondi saying always informative. Then you have Trevor Tukiko sending in some fire emoji. They have Nailing Gige. Thank you guys. Continue commenting. And I can see another comment from Stephen Bayaki saying that, was that an introduction? So I think that goes to Timothy. Was that yeah, Indeed, he said it was a very, very brief introduction, Stephen. Now, also on this other end, I see people were saying they're watching. I can see Peter Dunga, Kiplimo, another one, Joseph Ruto, Mbua. Yeah, I cannot mention all of them, but people are watching us from various platforms. Thank you. Can continue sending in your comments or any questions that you have. We'll try to react to it. Now, Stephen Omukoko, as Timothy has put it, he has really elaborated it. Also, Grace elaborated it for us in a very, let's say, legal way. And we have also heard of it in a public policy sort of aspect. And many people are saying that it is good. It is good that this thing is not that bad off, as long as they take care of our money. As long as they take care of our money. But on the other end, people are saying, if you are saying that, it means you're not a person who's under a pay slip. Because at the end of the day, the burden is on the pay slip people. Now, what happens to it? Is it fair, Omukoko? Or you will tell us, like Odor told me another day, that to whom much is given, much is required.
Yeah, that is actually written on one of the doors on Instarehe. To whom much is given, much will be required. But in any case, I think this is an important conversation. If I were president today, I'll try to approach this differently. The first concern for me is that we have about 19 million registered voters in Kenya. We only have 2.5 million registered taxpayers. So we need to expand the tax base, yes, but we need more people to be registered as taxpayers. It is true that taxes are good, and it's our responsibility to pay taxes to a government. But when we see a government that is still committed to rewarding loyalists at the expense of the Kenyan people, employing 50 CASs, it will be very hard for the government to convince Kenyans that their resources will be used responsibly. We have also seen in the last few days, the government, as David B. said, has developed an itchy feet problem, meaning that they have been out of the country almost way more than any other regime that we have seen before. And I think the president has been close to probably 30 countries or thereabouts. I'm not sure of the exact number, but it's just a lot. And this is taxpayers' money being used. He's not getting into his pockets. So I think this is a serious concern. The other problem with taxes at this given time is that people do not have money. And so if you're milking a cow that is already dried up, there's always this cartoon of a skinny cow being milked. And I think that is the situation that Kenya is in now. We need a government that takes austerity measures. The government continues to lavishly use money as though there's no problem, there's no crisis. They continue to hold very expensive sessions. So they need to take more austerity measures if they are indeed honest that we are in a serious crisis. That said, we also need to encourage investment from people abroad, and taxes, we need to be very careful about what to tax and how we tax, and whether these taxes are actually punitive. Because I don't know if there's anyone who has mentioned this, but we have tax on makeup, fake nails, wigs, and fake beards, which is okay. But again, the people who use these things are Kenyans, they're young Kenyans, girls, a lot of them are struggling to get money. So if we increase taxes and they are such level that they think it's necessary to use these items, we are actually punishing them. The other tax that we have seen is tax on gambling, which I think is a good tax because it might be the case that it might reduce maybe levels of betting and such things. But the other challenge is betting is very addictive. So when we add taxes, we just make it harder for people who are already addicted. And that means we make them even suffer more so that they pay a lot more to the government and earn a lot less. The other thing is there are many schools of thought, but there is one that says a good government is one that governs less. What the Kenyan government is essentially saying is that the people do not know how to manage their money, and the government wants to manage it for them. And that's why they're increasing taxes everywhere and every corner you can think of. And of course, there's just so much about it that makes you wonder, what does the government really want? There are good things, of course, like taxes on imports. We have 0% taxation on raw materials. We have 10% on intermediate goods, and we have 25% on finished products. What that means is that we are encouraging production in our country, because when we import raw materials at 0%, then that is beneficial. And then when we have a 25% tax on finished products, we are protecting local manufacturing companies so that they can face the competition with international production. But the biggest concern for me is the VAT on petroleum products. I know it has two aspects to it. One is that Kenya has committed to leading the way in addressing climate change. And so we are reducing our use of fossil fuels. And people hope that this will happen. But this is coming too soon because we are not at a level where we can say that we will just do away with the petroleum products or fossil fuels. And so that means that when we raise it to 16%, we're actually going to hurt our economy severely. And this is why. Petroleum products are largely producer goods. That means that they are used in production process. And if they're not used in the production process, they are used in the transportation cost. This means that the cost of production will go high. We know that the prices of goods is already way high. And so if we are increasing the VAT on petroleum products, we can only expect that that will go much higher. So I think that is a serious concern. There's something that Grace mentioned, and we need to check this. To appeal a decision to appeal tribunal, you have to deposit 20% of the amount in dispute. I don't know whether that has been changed because it's one of the concerns. We just need to check. It was in the finance bill. I think that they adjusted that, but maybe we can confirm later and get back and share with people. But we also have taxes on dividends. A lot of people wait for dividends, rising from 5% to 15%. And so I think this really discourages investment in other companies or firms because then a lot of the money goes to the government. The other concern is the turnover tax on micro businesses. You know, when this regime rose, it promised that it's going to protect small businesses. But it seems that it's also targeting SMEs, and which is a big concern because SMEs contribute greatly to our economy. And so when we see that we have micro businesses between 500,000 to 15 million being taxed, turnover tax, then that is really concerning because then these businesses will be severely affected, especially in the environment that we are in right now. So I think overall, the finance bill, I will not say it's good or bad, but one thing I can say for sure is that the timing is terrible. So all these things could be implemented, but at a better time. The other thing is the way we just don't trust that this government is actually committed to achieving the goals that it has made. And a lot of the things in the finance bill are also not new. The housing levy was tried before. We didn't see much happening. It was not a levy, but the government tried to build houses. That was not very efficient. It seems that the government is very inefficient at doing anything it ever does. That's why NHIF troubles that we have. The health system is terrible, and a lot of things that are concerning to Kenyans. So, of all that can be said, I'll say that the timing is certainly not the best. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Although we have had people looking at this thing from a very, professional perspective, and also from now your profession, which is politically oriented as a political scientist, I also want to ask you this question because I'm sure Kennedy, if Kennedy would have been here, he would have really wanted to hear that. And he's telling me he cannot be able to make it for the conversation. We saw a lot of politics behind this financial bill finance act, finance bill, and then now it's finance act. There was a lot of politics. Azimio was saying this, tutaandamana tena. The UDA, they're saying we're not going to hear anything from you guys. You remember the first reading, it was chaos in the parliament, in the National Assembly, and all of that. And also this speaks to the kind of politics that we have in this country. Somebody was telling me the level of impunity is very high. Actually, I've also remembered, Collins Minor told me that maybe this thing was intended to be 3%. 1.5% for the housing levy and 1.5% from the word go. They just decided to put it 3% and there, and then for us to, at the end of the day, come back to 1.5%. So, what do you think? How do you read, especially with whatever you have seen, the phenomenon that you have seen, especially politically, as matters concerning the Finance Act?
Yes, thank you, Ashira. In Kenya, what I've learned in my few years of being around, politics is a very integral part in terms of governance and the economics of the country. Former President of the United States Theodore Roosevelt says that politics is the drive and the only drive towards economic empowerment in any country. Every country in the whole world is governed by politics. So, in the sense, the parliamentary system of Kenya is being driven by the executive, sincerely speaking. The executive has much weight in its sense. And then, to some extent, the political parties and the various coalitions in Kenya, MPs have a say in whatever decisions they make, but in terms of voting, it seems that if a certain coalition takes its own place and own play in terms of a yes or a no, a nay or a no, a yes or a nay, it becomes a problem in the sense that you see some of the Azimio coalition members of parliament who voted yes to the finance bills have been talked of as being not being of the sense in following what the coalition states, yet they were voting according to their own instincts and those of the people they represented. On the other hand, the Kenya Kwanza MPs who voted no on this on some of the clauses, since we had 157 clauses and roughly 34 had integral weight, the housing levy, the VAT, payee, NHIF, and so on and so forth. When you looked at the MPs who said no on the other side of the house, the party stand was to some extent driven in a way that it didn't relate to what the people they represent wanted. If you see, during the whole process of the finance bill being, and let alone being enacted and assented by the president, from the first reading, the second, and even it being passed, you see that the executive, in this case the president, called all its affiliated MPs to State House, surprisingly, to to teach them on what the finance bill entailed, as if them themselves they were not represented by the people to discuss the various elements attributed to the same stated finance bill. On the other side, you'll find it even forced the PS in charge of housing, PS, I don't want to mention his name, let me just mention it, PS Hingas, did sweat profusely and even pouring water and glass, explaining to us what is being entailed in the finance bill. It really raises question to whatever the politics of this country is all about. You'll find that when learned people like Steve, Grace, Timothy, you and I talk about these things, the negative sides of this finance act as it is, the other side, the Kenya Kwanza, will tend to put us on this other side of the Azimio. That is an Azimio quack, that is an Azimio sent guy, and so on and so forth. Kwamba Owino is the CEO Economic Institute of Economics. It really brought about the integral parts associated with the bill before its assent, even during the first reading and so on and so forth, during its discussion. But the point being driven, you'll find that the other people on the other side did say that this is an Azimio person. So it really raises question, is the parliament, the August House itself, an independent arm of the government, or it's being driven by the executive? That is a problem that we need to ask ourselves as individuals, and even not attribute. Even the media houses were accused before Royal Media Service brought about the big conversation. It was also being attributed to the other side. The other day, you saw Nation Media bring into book the corruption scandal going about the edible oils. You'll find that a certain CS did say that they were, how do you call it, vifaranga via Azimio. They were being sent by Azimio. And His Highness the Aga Khan has been in place for the last 60 years since independence, and Nation Media Group has always been in spade in terms of bringing competent and news in a certain way. When the government is being brought into book and the government is in place, being asked various questions pertaining to the various corruption cases, it really derives a certain, not even political, the political side of it. It doesn't bring us to whatever we as a people are supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Back to the finance bill itself, on the political side, in terms of you look at the chairman of the finance pillar, even the budget chair, who stated very well that this fund itself, there's a trust deficit in this country. Most of us as citizens, we don't trust the government in place ever. Whether it would have been Raila Odinga being the president, whether it would have been another term for Jaden, President Uhuru, it would have still been the same, because 10 years ago, you'll find that the government which was there even had serious issues as it is. So let us give it time. Let us give it time. We are hopeful that the how do you call it, July going to be the prerequisite, the litmus paper to determine the next few years or the next financial years as it will be. We are going to derive ourselves on ways in which we as citizens, especially those who have pay slips, are going to be impacted the most. So as it is, the government itself hasn't told us how this money is going to be managed. It doesn't bring or give a clear view or picture in which this money is going to be managed, in terms of the private sector going to construct the houses, especially on the housing levy, how it's going to be impacted on the common man. They're just talking of giving jobs to wananchi, and the other day you saw the deputy president telling graduates in JKUAT that they don't have jobs for us. The only jobs which are there is construction. So it raises a lot of questions. The consolidated fund that is being spoken of in the treasury is a consolidated fund that is not even discussed in a way that a common mwananchi can understand. Where is this money going to be placed in? Is this money going to be used in terms of paying the private sector, or it's just going to be there as an amount that is going to be security for the private people going to construct these houses? So it's a come and go. And yesterday, when the Azimio coalition leader came back from Poland, he did give his bare minimum on ways in which we can curb or stop paying taxes to this current regime. Whether it's going to be put in place, whether the mandamanos are going to be brought into book, it's also a question that is going to be there. To add or to finalize on the same, there's this MP of Igembe South who is taking to parliament that all mandamanos, the mandamanos going to be done. When your property is dismantled or done away with, the person who organized the various mandamano is going to be held culpable. Whether this is going to be a true thing to be enacted, we are yet to see, and it's just a matter of wait and see. So on the political side, these things, as politics it is governed by the executive. As always, as it has been, the majority have their say, the minority always have their say, the majority always have their way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dor, for that in-depth political look on it. I'm going to ask a final question, last round, because I can see now time is not on our side. I'm going to start with, actually, I'm going to ask similar question to Grace and Timothy. And let me start with Grace, ladies first. This thing, or the Finance Act, will be reviewed after 1 year. I think that's how it is supposed to be. By the end of this financial year, this thing is supposed to be reviewed. And we have already said, and it is already clear, that we do not have some measures. There are no strict measures that we can be able to know how these monies are going to be taken, or where they will be taken, and all that. Now, what if, just a weird question, what if it doesn't work? Grace, what if it doesn't work and it becomes another scandal, a big scandal in history? Grace, very briefly, please.
Thank you. So that's a good question, because what if it doesn't work? But the government always has a way to make it seem like it's working. And it's so sad that people can just be coaxed or manipulated by very small things. The government can really go far and beyond just to keep us in mind, to to just make us believe that it is working, and it is not working. And one of the things that we can already see happening is the trolling that is going on within the politicians, the hate speech. It's meant to distract, disrupt us, and I feel like it's also choreographed, like it's scripted. So it's sad that it may not work, and the government, I think they already have a plan, or it's already premeditated.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, this is how we're going to show the people that it's not happening because of this and this and this. So it's premeditated. But if it doesn't work, I think it will take a long time. Yeah.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you. Timothy, also the same question. Look at it in a way. What if it doesn't work? Because that is the conversation many people are not having. What if this thing does not work? Timothy, I don't know if you can hear me. I think you're experiencing some network issues with Timothy. I cannot hear him from my end. Timothy, can you hear us? I think we have some network issues from Timothy. Timothy, if you can hear us, please check on that. We'll get back to you in a few minutes. But just as we wrap up, I can see some comments from Baby Toto saying that just loving the topic today, and Kevin Vidzo saying following better late than never. Thank you, guys. Omukoko, let me get back to you, and please also as tell us the final comments on this, because I think it will be an ongoing conversation. Please let us hear your final conversations and answer any question briefly that you feel we should have asked but we have not asked. So please, Obukoko, briefly.
Yes. I want to appreciate the fact that you brought this conversation. I think it's a little bit late because now we have something that is already enacted. It should have come a little bit earlier. And my encouragement to young people is that to continue contributing towards such discussions, whether it's in public spaces, whether they should send a note to the government. There are many ways that anyone can contribute towards this and public engagement. You had asked a question, what if this does not work? I think for me, this is a win-win situation. And I say this because I think this, if it doesn't work, will be the most painful experience Kenyans will have in a long time. The next time they vote, they will always remember it. So if it doesn't work, I'll still know that there's something positive out of it. Kenyans will feel the pain, and from then hence, they won't tell me that they want to vote for Aluya because they are Aluya. They want to vote for Kikuyu because they are Kikuyu. They will want to vote for leaders with ideas, leaders who seek change. The other thing is now we have a reason to hold our government to account. A lot of times we have relied on debt, we have relied on donations and aid. And when we do that, people will always say, that is not my money anyway. Someone donated from elsewhere. But now that the money is coming from our pockets, let us see if indeed people will just sit back and watch the government waste their money. So whatever happens, if it goes well, good for Kenya. If it goes bad, a lesson well learned. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Omukoko has just said, ndio ili iwe funzo kwako ama ili iwe funzo kwetu na wengine wenye tabia kama yetu, because you're the people who voted for this government. Timothy, I don't know if you can now hear me. Timothy? Timothy, can you hear me?
From the comments, it seems he can hear us. We're only having a challenge hearing him.
Yeah. Okay. I think, we still can't hear him, but Please try and just look at that one more time. Odoro Mondio Gara, please let us get your final comments briefly.
I know I speak a lot. Let me try. I hope I won't digress. Yes, as it is, as it is, there is no pain without gain. So let us. I'm still hopeful that after probably in 2nd of January 2024, we'll have a report. I don't want to put it at 12 months. I only need 6 months to be able to know the extent to which the government is going through with this Finance Act that is already in place. Uh, However, the impact of the bill as it was, the impact of the act as it is to individuals will depend on their income and level, and even the specific tax changes that are implemented. We still have an HIF proposal that is yet to be in place, so we are just waiting. The success of it as an act will depend on the economic level of the country, the public opinion that is always not being taken into consideration, the political support that is wavy, and probably the extent at which Kenyans are able to brace themselves for the times that are yet to come. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Odor. Thank you for your final comments. I don't know if right now Timothy can hear us.
I can hear you.
Timothy?
Unfortunately, you can't hear me.
Yeah, we can now hear you. Please go ahead.
Well. Like I've typed there, though it's in the rough draft, I'm more inclined into believing this Finance Act magic may not really work. But now that I have to answer your question, what if it doesn't work? Well, there goes a story that back somewhere in West Africa, there used to be a village, let's call it Village X. The villagers would go over 3 kilometers, miles and miles, to look for water. So the government kept asking itself, why are these people going miles and miles to look for water, yet we have one borehole in the village? So later on, after doing the investigation deep and deep, what they thought best without consultation, and that's why I insisted on Article 1, sovereign public participation. Let's provide water for you. So it ends up that whatever used to make the villagers go miles and miles, either they were seeking conjugal rights, now that there were no good houses and children were around, they could not have managed to do their business in the presence of people. What is my message? Well, and I'll echo whatever Mkoko said. Our issue is an issue of timing and responsiveness. If we have been talking about NHIF not helping people, NHIF having scandals and scandals, I'm not saying it's part of the finance bill, but I'm trying to bring us back to where we are as a country and how bad the situation is. Then the head of state ends up talking about having a 2.75% deduction on NHIF. Are we really being honest on people? Currently, we are talking of overtaxing people, whether it's for the benefit of people or for the interest of government officials or whoever. We are already witnessing the problems that come with it. We have dollar shortages. What is this of ambition we have on raising 3.26 trillion within a year? And as we know, and whatever is blue is blue. If oxygen is colorless, is colorless. We know these people. If they have a track record of lying to people and people have already rejected the promises that are being offered because they cannot be substantiated, we may end up having a country like Uganda, where somebody has ruled over 35 years and he still blames the previous regime. We will be asking them, you promised us a specific number of houses. Where are they? So, what I'm asking, where is the plan? In Nairobi, for example, we already have suburban areas everywhere, apartments everywhere. Where are we going to build the houses? Is it in Pangani? Is it in Runda? Where exactly? In project management, we speak of phases, implementation, monitoring and evaluation. All that is not being talked about. Where is the plan? In Nairobi, for example, we already have suburban areas everywhere, apartments everywhere. Where are we going to build the houses? Is it in Pangani? Is it in Runda? Where exactly? In project management, we speak of phases, monitoring and evaluation. All that is not being talked about. to the people. Spoke of separation of powers, checks and balances, having the executive, judiciary, legislature. As we see, there is an overreaching executive. The legislature is being remote controlled from whichever the place. So the big deal is this, and now that is what I'm asking everyone to look at it. Well, we might say the legislature represents the people, or we can call the legislature, in the good words of my Latin friends or my legal friends, my learned friends, potestas populi, power of the people. But as we see, some people were elected in Azimio, for example, they should be providing oversight for the government. They're already on the other side. On the other side, we already have people even looking at the voting that happened for the finance bill. There are some who voted for the other side. So are those people we can trust? If no, my other cost of living will be unbearable. Other than that, the government promised manna and it's not providing manna, it's providing something else. People will understand their power, and like Omkoko said, well, at the ballot, the people will express their power, and that's when you'll know there is power in the masses, power to the people. That is my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Timothy. Maybe they're providing quails. Maybe it's not manna, but maybe it's quails. You don't know. But I can see Felix Baraza saying that it will definitely be a lesson well learned. Steve, uh, final comments?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me today, and thank you for bringing up the conversation. As we said, I just want to remind this country and all those who are listening to us that where we live today and where we are today, there's no Messiah who will come to save us. This country will be saved by its people. It will be saved by young people like you and I. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't know about the finance bill. They just don't care. They're not part of the country. They just live their own lives outside the political space. Truth of the matter is that if we want anything out of this country, then we have to be actively on the front line, making our voices heard and making our contributions where we can. I want to remind the young people of this country, it's our time to take this country back. It's a time to take ownership of the leadership of this nation. It is our time to feel part of this homeland we call Kenya and contribute very actively towards its growth and prosperity. I am always positive about the future of Kenya and the future of Africa. The finance bill is a test, and like all tests, I'm sure we shall overcome if we remain steadfast on what we really want on Project Kenya and on the dream that some of our founding fathers had. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Omukoko. And I want to thank everybody who has watched us, who will watch us later, and everybody who has commented, and those who are also going to send their comments later. We do not take it for granted. I also appreciate, in a very special manner, the panelists today, Grace, Odoro Mondi, Omukoko, and Timothy Mabango. Very, very grateful for you guys today for this conversation. We also hope that in future we are going to have more interactive conversations. I know this took a long time coming, as Omukoko said, but we are going to be here and we're going to be talking about these things as they are the things that affect us. Also, stay tuned on Sunday. We'll go back to our normal session where we'll be having African Corner, episode 23. We'll be discussing a very interesting conversation. So keep it tuned so that you know what is going to be happening. I don't want to add anything or reduce anything. I just want to say my name is Mutavi Washira Wanyaga, Mujiro wa Baria Karigithi. Thayo, Thayo, Thayo. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your week.